My name is Leah, and at 33 years old, I work as a civil servant in a national administrative agency. Life has been demanding with a hectic schedule, but I'm doing what I've always dreamed of since my student days, so I feel fulfilled in my career, in my personal life. I've been living with my partner Hugh for 5 years. While we're not officially married and are considered a common law couple, Hugh's parents often mention that we should think about getting married for our future. However, we haven't taken that step yet. My family has always been deeply rooted in male chauvinism. Above all, despite being my parents' first child and the first grandchild on my dad's side, I've never felt valued. Tomorrow there's a talent show at 2C school, and I've invited my parents countless times, only to be mocked and dismissed. They would say hurtful things like, if we had time, we'd rather sleep, or you're really stupid. If you don't understand that seeing my friends' parents take photos and videos during school events was particularly heartbreaking before I started elementary school. My brother Miles was born. The joy he brought over shadowed everything else. Even my workaholic dad would rush home if Mum texted about Miles. Feeling unwell, they would stay up all night taking care of him. When I started elementary school, neither of my parents attended the orientation. Citing they were too busy with Miles, I felt utterly alone on my first day watching other families take commemorative photos. Not only my parents, but also my grandparents treated Miles as if he were the only grandchild who mattered. His paternal grandparents who lived with him showered him with gifts and took him everywhere. This upbringing made Miles selfish and arrogant, especially towards me. He would take my things or destroy them without consequence, and my family would dismiss my complaints. This cycle of neglect and favoritism continued throughout my childhood, leaving me to grow up without feeling any warmth or love for my family. I had one simple wish to attend college as far away from home as possible, effectively cutting ties with my family at home. My brother Miles was always in the way, or I get stuck with chores that disrupted my studies, so I buried myself in books, libraries, and empty classrooms after school to cover college application fees, travel expenses for school tours, and exam costs. I worked part-time at grocery stores. All that effort paid off when I got accepted into a prestigious university. My parents and grandparents couldn't care less if you want to go, but don't expect any help from us. They said I saw that coming from a mile away. I had already applied for every scholarship available and planned to live in a dorm to minimize costs. Plus, I had my best friend Selena, and I had been friends since elementary school. Her parents knew all about my family situation. Selena's dad even worked at the same company as AM in a different department. My dad's psychic behavior was often a topic of discussion at his workplace. Selena's mum, who had a similar domineering personality, shared stories from their school days when Selena and I first became friends. Her parents were cautious about their daughter befriending someone from my family. However, they warmed up to me after seeing how much Selena praised me and how I stood by her when she faced isolation from other girls in class. If it weren't for you, Leah, my school life would have been miserable, Selena often said. But the truth is, I don't know what I would have done without her and her parents. They were the ones who kept me going. Selena always encouraged me to be myself, and her parents offered a helping hand whenever I needed it. Thanks to them, I was able to navigate through high school. As for college, Selena had already decided to attend a local university. They had nothing to do until graduation, so Selena offered to help me Lee. She said she assisted with the nitty-gritty details of placement exam, logistics, like booking hotels and flights on the day I left for college. My family did bother to see me off, but Selena and her parents came to the airport. As we said our goodbyes, she handed me an envelope. This is a farewell gift from all of us. You'll need things for dorm life. She said inside was $2,000. I tried to refuse, but she insisted. Take it. We'll always be friends, but I won't be able to help you like this again, she said, tears in her eyes. During my college years, I never touched that money. Holding on to the envelope reminded me of Selena and her family, giving me the star strength to keep going. After graduating from college, I pursued my dream of attending graduate school. I passed the civil service exam and took my first steps into the working world. Selena and I stayed in touch through tech, and she even visited me during family vacations. She ended up working as an administrative staff member at a local hospital after college. 8 years later, I returned to my hometown for the first time in 12 years. I was invited to Sella's wedding, where she married a doctor from the same hospital where she worked. During those 12 years, my maternal grandparents had passed away, but my paternal grandparents, who lived with us, were still healthy. My brother Miles had enrolled in a prestigious middle school considered the most challenging in our area that same year. When I went off to college, my parents were proud, often boasting, "Miles is just like me. So talented, we're excited for his future. We might even send him abroad for studies." Miles, considered a child prodigy in elementary school, found himself among equally capable students in his new school. However, he was shocked when he scored average on his first exam. "This can't be the real me. I'm better than this." Miles insisted. Instead of putting in effort, he blamed everyone else, teachers, classmates, even the school's timing for his shortcomings. By the time he reached 9th grade, the school suggested transferring might be less stressful for him, but both Miles and my parents couldn't accept this reality. Driven by their pride, Miles continued on to high school, where he struggled to keep up and eventually dropped out. Meanwhile, I was in grad school when my parents suddenly asked, "Aren't there any schools there that Miles could get into? The more prestigious, the better. A school with tradition would be ideal." They even hinted if I knew any influential professors. I tried to explain the impracticality of their expectations, but they accused me of being cold and heartless. I stood firm, insisting that some things are simply impossible. Eventually, we lost contact, according to Selena, who stayed in our hometown. My parents enrolled Miles in an online high school. They made excuses, claiming our son is too exceptional for regular education. He would only attract jealousy and make life difficult for himself. Miles graduated from the online high school, attended a local college, and secured a job at a subsidiary of my dad's company. Through my grandfather's influence, through this connection, I crossed paths with Miles again when I returned to my hometown for Selena's wedding. I arrived 2 days early at her request. She had something important to discuss, unenthusiastic about visiting my parents. I opted to stay at the hotel where the wedding would take place. I spent leisurely moments with Selena, including trips to the spa. We were invited to dinner by Selena's parents, and it was during this dinner at the hotel restaurant that I unexpectedly encountered Miles and my parents. At first, they didn't recognize me. I suppose it was understandable. When I lived at home, I was thin and didn't prioritize my appearance like other girls. It was only when my parents greeted Selena's parents that they realized I was their daughter. "Lee, is that you're back in town? You've changed," my parents exclaimed warmly. "Are you free later? Maybe we could." I wasn't in the mood for their sudden friendliness. "I'm heading back right after Selena's reception, so I don't have time." I interjected, then quickly excused self. I did catch Mai's eye, but to be honest, I wouldn't have recognized him on the street. He had lost his youthful look and now exuded a demeanor that seemed cunning. After the wedding, I returned to my condo soon after started receiving messages from my parents, and Mai, who had obtained my number from Selena's parents without my consent, according to a message from Selena's father, who apologized for giving them my contact information. They wanted me to attend Miles's wedding. Miles is getting married. Yes, apparently to the younger sister of a college classmate. She's only 21 and quite beautiful. My parents messaged me. What does that have to do with me attending? I responded, puzzled. According to Selena's father, Miles had secured his job through my grandfather's connections, but his overinflated self-esteem often clashed with his actual abilities. He had developed a habit of looking down on people, dismissing those who stayed in our hometown as insignificant. Consequently, when he announced his wedding, nearly everyone from colleagues to bosses found excuses to avoid attending. I had every intention of feeding a terrible cold that day, or at least using my tarot card reading as an excuse to avoid going anywhere near the wedding venue. Planning to have a cold, huh? I see, I thought to myself wryly. My parents and Mill seemed determined to match or exceed the number of attendees from the bride's side. Even though I'm not the most exuberant sister or daughter, they apparently felt it necessary to have me there, especially given my graduate degree from a prestigious university and my government job. Their shallow reasoning annoyed me to no end. Competing over the number of attendees is absurd, I muttered to myself, but ignoring them would only lead them to pester Selena's father to intervene. So reluctantly, Ha replied to Miles's message he had greeted me with, "Long time no talk. You must be happy to be useful to the family." For once I ignored his snide remark and agreed to attend the wedding. To minimize any further their hassle, fast forward to the wedding day. 2 months later, the bride was as beautiful as Selena's father had described, and she exuded genuine kindness and straightforwardness. I couldn't help but wonder why such a wonderful woman would marry someone like Miles. But I chose not to pry and simply played my role as the groom's sister. After the wedding, Miles and his new wife departed for their honeymoon without much ado. No one made an effort to keep me around, and I had nothing to say to my parents or grandparents. I made a brief visit to Selena's home to convey my greetings, and then left. Time passed without any contact until suddenly Miles reached out to invite me to see the cherry blossoms. It wasn't as grand as the National Cherry Blossom Festival in Washington, D.C., but her hometown also had a botanical garden with cherry trees. It was a common seasonal event, yet I grew suspicious when it became clear that the real agenda wasn't just about cherry blossoms, but something more significant, convincing me to relinquish my inheritance rights. Apparently, a major land development project was in the work near a family home, with a prominent developer planning to buy up the area for a large condo. Complex real estate prices were soaring, particularly around our property, which included not only the house, but also a sizable parking area. It seemed Miles, and my parents enticed by the rising land value. With Hugh by my side, I felt a sense of security and optimism that I had never known before. Life moved on with its usual rhythm. My career continued to thrive, and I found joy in the work I did. But now, there was a newfound balance. Weekends were reserved for spontaneous trips with Hugh, quiet dinners with friends, and indulging in hobbies I had neglected for so long. I had finally learned to embrace the present, without the shadows of the past looming over me. One evening, as Hugh and I strolled through a local park, the cherry blossoms in full bloom, I felt a deep sense of contentment. The blossoms, so delicate and ephemeral, reminded me of the transient nature of life and the importance of savouring every moment. "Hugh," I said, squeezing his hand, "thank you for everything, for being my rock, and for standing by me through it all." He smiled, his eyes reflecting the warmth of the setting sun. "Leah, you've always been strong. I'm just glad I could be here with you." As we continued our walk, I felt a quiet determination settling within me. The future was a blank canvas, and for the first time, I felt ready to paint it with all the colours of my dreams and aspirations. The past had shaped me, but it no longer defined me. I was free to create a life filled with love and the promise of new beginnings. And so, with each step forward, I embraced the journey ahead, knowing that I had finally found my place in the world, a place where I belonged, where I was valued, and where I was loved. The moral of the story is that resilience, self-worth, and compassion can triumph over adversity. Despite experiencing neglect and favoritism within her family, the story emphasizes the importance of finding inner strength, seeking out supportive relationships, and never letting past hardships define one's future. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed Leah's journey of resilience and self-discovery, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Remember, no matter what challenges you face, you have the power to overcome them and create a fulfilling life on your own terms. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts or your own experiences of triumph over adversity. And as always, stay strong, stay positive, and keep chasing your dreams. See you in the next video.